Well, I'm Bob Huff, and my wife Joann, and we're going to tell you some of our story. Why don't you start?
Well, we're here in Tucson, Arizona. It is late January, and this year, in June, we will have been married 52 years. Bob and I met back in Denver, Colorado, where he was in the service, and I was working for a U.S. National Bank, and we met.
At a sports car club meeting, I had a little MG, TD 1952 MG, kind of a cute little car, and I had a friend that had an MG, and she had told me about her girlfriend, Joann, how we should meet, and likewise, Baby Doe had told Joann about me, and we'd heard about each other for about a year before we finally met, and when we met, we kind of fell in love, and 6 months later, we were married, and we continued living in Denver while I was in the service there, and had our son Phil there. He was born in Denver, and when I got out of the service, then I took a job with Univac and went to training in upstate New York, in Utica, for a few months, and then we moved on to Massachusetts, where I worked at the Logan Airport in Boston.
And we lived up in Marblehead. We had rented the downstairs part of an old house that had been built in the
1635.
Right. And while we were living there, Trish was born. We had, I guess, Trish and Kathy and Deb were all born while we lived up there in Marblehead. They were born, though, in a hospital over in Swampscott.
Lynn.
Or Lynn, rather, next to Swampscott, right. You remember better than I do.
And then we moved, my job moved us down to Maryland, and we lived in Maryland for about 6 years.
Well, we lived first in Cheverly, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. in Prince George's County. And then after
About a year.
a year and a half, something
house.
like that, we bought a house out in Laurel, Maryland, in a brand new subdivision that was being built then. We bought our house then for less than what we paid for our last car, bought used. If you can believe that, our house cost us $14,000?
$14,000 or something like that.
For a
Three-bedroom.
three-bedroom, two-bath, multi-level house. And we lived there until
1969.
69, 70.
And my job again moved me back to Massachusetts. So we packed up the family, the tribe, and we moved up to Massachusetts. And this time we lived in Framingham for 8 years. And
At number 1 Old Connecticut Path. It was a very unique piece of property. Old house, once again.
Once again, the house had been built in the 1600s, late 1600s. It burned in 1702, but was rebuilt. And so it was a big old New England house, and we lived there. And then I had the job opportunity to move back to Colorado, which we both wanted to do. So again, we packed up the clan and we moved to Colorado Springs, and we lived there in Colorado Springs for 21 years, and retired and decided to move down here to Arizona. We live in Marana, it's just outside of Tucson, in a retirement community, and we've been here 10 years now. And of course, our children, our kids, who are not kids anymore, they have moved around and live in various places. And Phil lives in Deb up in Idaho, and Tricia and Rod live in Scottsdale and sometimes in Idaho. And Kathy has moved back east with her guy and lives in upstate New York. And our daughter Deb and her husband live in Colorado, just outside of Colorado Springs.
And Joanna, our granddaughter.
we have a granddaughter who is our daughter Deb's daughter, and Joanna, and she lives in San Francisco.